Hi there. Welcome to Finantax Clips, where we break down complex financial concepts for you. Today, we're tackling a topic that has sparked many a debate in economic circles and coffee shops alike: the impact of national debt on the U.S. economy. National debt, you ask? Yes, it's that colossal figure that our country owes, and it's a topic that is as fascinating as it is complex. Understanding national debt and its implications is vital, not just for economists or policy wonks, but for each of us. It affects our lives in ways more profound than we often realize. Are we borrowing our way to prosperity, or are we on a road to economic ruin? These are some of the questions we'll be exploring today. So fasten your seatbelts, folks. Stick around as we delve into the fascinating world of national debt and how it affects the U.S. economy. First off, what is national debt? It sounds like a big, scary term, doesn't it? But don't worry, we're going to break it down for you. National debt is, in essence, the total amount of money that a country's government has borrowed. Yes, you heard it right. Just like individuals borrow money from banks or other financial institutions, governments too borrow money. They borrow to fund various public services and infrastructure projects, to stimulate the economy during recessions, or even to wage wars. Imagine the government as a person. This person has a lot of responsibilities, like maintaining roads, providing healthcare, ensuring public safety. The list goes on. And just like a person, the government needs money to fulfill these responsibilities. But where does this money come from? Well, the government has its own income, primarily through taxes. But sometimes the expenses exceed the income, and that's when the government borrows money, creating what we know as national debt. In terms of who the money is borrowed from, it could be from its own citizens, from businesses, or even from foreign governments. This borrowed money is promised to be paid back with interest, just like any other loan. So, the national debt is essentially a sum of all these unpaid borrowings, or IOUs, that the government owes. Now, don't be too alarmed. National debt isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be a useful tool for governments to manage their economies. Think of it like this. When you borrow money to buy a house, you're creating personal debt, but you're also investing in a long-term asset. Similarly, when a government borrows money to invest in infrastructure or education, it's creating debt, but it's also investing in the country's future growth. But just like personal debt, too much national debt can become a problem. This is especially true if the government isn't able to pay back its loans on time, or if the size of the debt becomes too large compared to the size of the economy. In essence, national debt is like a credit card bill for the government. Now, let's explore what happens if this bill gets too high. So, what does national debt have to do with the economy? Quite a lot, actually, and in ways you might not expect. National debt is like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can help stimulate the economy, especially during a recession. On the other hand, too much of it can have adverse effects. Let's start with the basics. When a country's national debt increases, it means the government is borrowing more money than it's bringing in from taxes and other revenues. This borrowed money is often used to fund various public projects, like building infrastructure or providing public services, which can stimulate economic growth. However, as the national debt grows, the government may need to raise taxes to pay off its debt obligations. Higher taxes can discourage spending and investment, which are key drivers of economic growth. This is where things can start to go south. When taxes increase, consumers have less disposable income to spend on goods and services. Businesses, grappling with higher tax burdens, may cut back on investments, slow down expansion plans, or even lay off employees. All these factors can slow down the economy, creating a ripple effect that can be felt far and wide. Inflation is another potential consequence of high national debt. Here's how it works. As the demand for goods and services decreases due to higher taxes and reduced spending, the government might print more money to stimulate the economy. However, when more money is circulating in the economy, the value of the currency can decrease. This can lead to inflation, where the prices of goods and services increase, further straining the finances of consumers and businesses. It's important to keep in mind that these are potential scenarios, not guarantees. The relationship between national debt and the economy is complex and influenced by many factors, including fiscal policy, interest rates, and global economic conditions. The balance between national debt and a healthy economy is a delicate one, indeed. The challenge for any government is to manage its debt in a way that supports economic growth without triggering the negative effects we've discussed. This is no small feat, but it's essential for maintaining a strong and stable economy. Now, let's bring this down to our home turf, the United States. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, there's a looming giant that we can't ignore: national debt. As of the moment, the United States holds one of the highest national debts in the world. Imagine a stack of $100 bills reaching beyond the moon. That's roughly how much we owe. So what got us here? Well, the reasons are multifaceted, but let's break them down. One of the major contributors to our national debt is the government's spending habits. Think of it like a credit card. If you continuously spend more than you earn, your debt will inevitably pile up. The same principle applies to our government. From defense spending to healthcare, social security, and education, these expenditures add up. But that's not all. The economic downturns, like the Great Recession of 2008 and the more recent COVID-19 pandemic, have also played a role in escalating this debt. During these times, the government had to step in with stimulus packages to keep the economy afloat. Though necessary, these measures added to our already hefty debt. And let's not forget about the interest on this debt. Imagine having a loan. The more you owe, the more you have to pay in interest. The US, with its titanic debt, has to shell out a significant amount just to service this debt. Lastly, tax policies also play a role. Cutting taxes can stimulate economic growth, but it also means less revenue for the government. When the government earns less but continues to spend, it can lead to an increase in debt. So it's a blend of government spending, economic downturns, interest payments, and tax policies that have contributed to our current national debt situation. With the US holding one of the highest national debts globally, the effects on our economy are significant. It's a complex issue, but understanding it is the first step towards finding solutions. So let's continue to explore this topic together in our next segment. So, how exactly does this high national debt impact our economy? Well, let's delve into the nitty-gritty of this complex issue. First off, high national debt can lead to decreased public investment. When the government is saddled with debt, it's like a giant weight on its shoulders. That weight makes it hard to move to invest in the future. It's like trying to swim with a backpack full of rocks. The government has less money to spend on essential public services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. These are the very things that fuel our economy and help it grow. Without adequate funding, they can't function as effectively as they should. Over time, this lack of investment can stunt economic growth and reduce the quality of life for all Americans. Next on the list is the impact of high national debt on interest rates. You see, when the government borrows money, it does so by issuing bonds. These bonds are bought by investors, both domestic and foreign. However, as the debt rises, investors may start to worry about the government's ability to repay its debt. To compensate for this increased risk, they demand higher interest rates. This increase in rates doesn't just affect the government, it trickles down into the economy, raising the cost of borrowing for everyone. This can make it more expensive for businesses to invest and for consumers to spend, which can slow economic growth. Lastly, let's talk about the potential for economic slowdown. This is a bit of a domino effect. As we've just discussed, high national debt can lead to decreased public investment and increased interest rates. Both of these factors can slow economic growth. But it doesn't stop there. Slower growth means less tax revenue for the government, which can lead to even higher debt. It's a vicious cycle that, if left unchecked, can lead to a full-blown economic crisis. But it's not all doom and gloom. While the impacts of high national debt are significant, they're not inevitable. There are steps that can be taken to mitigate these effects, which we'll discuss in the next scene. So, there you have it, folks. High national debt can lead to decreased public investment, increased interest rates, and potential economic slowdown. It's a complex issue with far-reaching implications. But understanding these impacts is the first step towards finding solutions. As you can see, the ripple effects of national debt are far-reaching and profound. But remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about this issue, the better equipped we are to address it. So let's keep the conversation going. Stay tuned for the next scene, where we'll discuss how we can mitigate these impacts. It's not all doom and gloom, though. There are ways to mitigate the impact of high national debt. The first step in this process is prudent fiscal management. This means that the government should aim to balance its budget over the economic cycle, spending wisely and ensuring that any borrowing is sustainable. It's like managing a household budget. You can't spend more than you earn indefinitely. You have to either increase your income or reduce your expenditure, or both. In the case of a country, it could mean raising taxes or cutting non-essential spending. But fiscal prudence alone isn't enough. We also need to stimulate economic growth. A thriving economy can help to shrink the national debt relative to the size of the economy, making it more manageable. This can be achieved through various means, such as investing in infrastructure, education, and research and development, which can all boost productivity and hence economic output. Another way to mitigate the impact of national debt is through monetary policy. Central banks can use tools such as interest rates to influence the economy. For example, lowering interest rates can stimulate economic activity by making it cheaper for businesses and consumers to borrow, which can spur spending and investment. Debt restructuring is another strategy that can be used in some situations. This involves renegotiating the terms of the debt, such as extending the repayment period or reducing the interest rate to make the debt more manageable. Lastly, governments can also consider selling off state-owned assets. This can help to raise funds to pay down debt. However, this should be done carefully to ensure that it doesn't negatively impact the economy or society in the long run. Remember, managing national debt is a complex task that requires a multi-pronged approach. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, and different strategies may be needed at different times, depending on the state of the economy. While managing national debt is a challenge, with the right strategies, it's not an insurmountable one. We've walked through the concept of national debt, its impact on the U.S. economy, and how to mitigate these effects. It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? Let's take a moment to recap the key points we've discussed. Firstly, we dove into understanding the national debt, which is essentially the total amount of money that a country's government has borrowed. It's like a credit card for the government, but with far broader implications. We learned that national debt is not inherently bad. In fact, it can be a helpful tool for stimulating the economy and funding essential services. However, just like personal debt, it needs to be managed responsibly. We then moved on to discuss the relationship between national debt and the economy. It's a delicate balance, isn't it? When managed properly, national debt can be a powerful tool for economic growth. It can fund public services, stimulate economic activity, and even help to stabilize the economy during challenging times. On the flip side, high levels of debt can lead to economic instability and potential financial crises if not managed carefully. Next, we delved into the specific case of national debt in the United States. We saw that the U.S. has one of the highest levels of national debt in the world. This is a cause for concern, but it's also important to remember that the U.S. has a strong and resilient economy. The key is to manage the debt responsibly and ensure that it's used to promote long-term economic growth. We then explored the impact of national debt on the U.S. economy. We discovered that high levels of debt can lead to slower economic growth, higher interest rates, and increased burden on future generations. However, we also emphasized that the impact of debt on the economy is complex and multifaceted. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how the debt is used and managed. Finally, we discussed how to mitigate the impact of national debt. We highlighted the importance of fiscal responsibility, prudent economic policies, and long-term planning. We also emphasized that it's not just about cutting spending or raising taxes. It's about making smart decisions that promote economic growth and stability. The journey through the landscape of national debt and its impact on the U.S. economy is a complex one, riddled with nuances and intricacies. It's crucial for us to understand and manage national debt properly, as it plays a pivotal role in our economy and our future. We hope that this video has provided you with a deeper understanding of national debt and its implications. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these important issues, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and contribute to meaningful discussions. Thank you for joining us today on Finantax Clips. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Until next time, keep learning.